Laurie Wyant Selby and Dean Selby are a US married couple who run two popular spots in Prague, burger restaurant The Tavern and U Kurelů, an old-school pub they've refashioned with great success. Prior to opening their own places, Dean and Laurie made a splash with their mobile Lokal burger business, which was involved in the early days of the city's farmers' markets. Our tour of their Prague begins at the popular wine bar Lokal. It's on the corner of Jiřího Poděbrad Square, home to a thriving farmers' market, and Laubova, which Laurie used to call home.
I used to live right across the street. If you look out the window, you can see my apartment. I was the third balcony up from 2001 until 2007. And it was like my first grown-up apartment. And it was so exciting to move to this street where there was what I thought was a lot of activity back then. It's nothing compared to what it is now, but it was one of the best experiences living right off the Jiřího Poděbrad Square with the wine festivals and all the things going on, and so it was that's a very special place for me there on Laubova.
Dean, I know you used to sell burgers here in the farmers market. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we started. I guess this is also the reason we're here, is the farmers markets, that we kind of had a little hand in starting, or at least helping with the guys that did it. Daniel Morek, Jiří Sedlčák, they started the first farmers markets here in Prague on Plavka. Daniel Morek had approached us because he knew of us, and he knew maybe that we could do something a little bit different. So we came up with this burger idea, local burger, and we started out here. Our first, we did other events through Daniel Morek and these different nadace, these different organizations, until we did farmers markets out here on Jiřího Poděbrad. We were able to do farmers markets and do some of the first these pop-ups, that were popular in London at the time. This is 2010. And you it's called an incubator for a small business, so you can just invest a little bit of money, and then after maybe some tests, after a year or 6 months, you can prove your project and your product, and you can maybe get some investment. And then we ended up opening the Tavern, the first burger restaurant in Prague, just shortly thereafter. But the cafe that we're in right now, what's so neat about it is it wouldn't probably be here if it weren't for the farmers market, because the farmers market now draws so many people, hundreds and hundreds of people a day, and it just rejuvenates parts of the neighborhood. People can then open up side businesses straddling this farmers market thing, and it's so important. We started pushing this stuff a long time ago, and all these people were doing it at the same time, and it's so wonderful now. It's such a community around here.
How did you find actually serving at the farmers market? I guess people were very excited in the beginning.
Well, it was a little weird because our prices weren't quite as compatible with the pricing now. Everything is pretty much priced accordingly, but back then people were only used to food stands on Václavák or at the train station or wherever.
So a 20 crown parek v roliku.
Exactly. And so I think we were charging something like 89 crowns for a burger back then. And we had this older Czech man come up, and I was taking the money and communicating with the people, and Dean was cooking. He started screaming at me. And in English, go back to America with your stupid hamburgers and your crazy prices. This is a hambach. It should be 40 crowns, and we're like, okay. But it was pretty extreme back then to charge anything over 40 or 50 crowns from a stand, and now it's pretty commonplace.
Do you think people have kind of been taught to pay for quality?
I think that's exactly what's happened, because you cannot expect anybody to even run a business and have something quality and not charge accordingly. The 59 crown hambach or whatever you want is this sakana with a cheap roll and some zeli, and yeah, you can get away with that. But if you have fresh ground beef and all fresh ingredients, it just costs that much more. And now you go out and there's everything. I mean, the cheapest thing over there is maybe the 99 crowns or 79, 89 crowns for the crepes or something like that. There's some guys that do the sakana in the hoska, yeah, for quite cheap. But burgers are 100 that people do everything. So I think everything's fine now. people understand. And people that are coming to these markets, I think they've traveled a little bit, they're educated. That's why they're coming to buy these vegetables. They know they're locally farmed, and they have their own reasons for shopping there versus Albert's or some international store where the stuff's being shipped in from all over the world.
What do you think, Laurie, the farmers markets have brought to Prague and this area?
Well, I think for this area, it's added to the sense of community. I mean, there's always been a good, strong community in Vinohrady Žižkov. It's a very community-oriented neighborhood. We know the shopkeepers, we pass people on the streets and say hi all the time, but it's magnified that. And as Dean said before, it's stimulated local businesses because of all of the people it brings in, the interest it brings in, and I've just seen the whole quality of the neighborhood go up. My father is involved in farmers markets development in Kentucky, and so, I know a lot of this from what he's done. It revives the neighborhood, it revives the community because people are in contact with each other, and there's also the support of the local farms and the local vendors, and I think it just makes people feel more connected to each other, and that is a great thing for any neighborhood or any community.
For the next stop in our tour of the couple's Prague, Laurie and Dean suggest a short walk to Palác Akropolis, a complex that includes offices, studios and flats, one of the city's top music venues, and a pub that's been a local fixture for over 2 decades. My guides and Akropolis go way back.
I came here in 1994 November, and moved in, or I was just going to visit a friend from college who lived over on Orlitska, which is where the old Hopu is, which is now where the new Vinohradsko pivovar is. And he picked me up at the airport, we took the bus to Davitska, then we got on the metro, and then he brought me to this bar in 1994. I guess it had been open 2 years, and it was just so, I don't know, awesome. It was like a rock bar, so different. I was young, and this place has stayed with me the whole time. I've lived in like 3 or 4 apartments in this area for 16 years, and I've been coming here the whole time, upstairs, downstairs.
What about you, Laurie?
Well, I remember when Akropolis opened. I came here in 1991, and I think it was 93 when it opened, and we came to the opening, and it was just like, it was my first time in this part of Žižkov, really. I'd lived at Flora back in 91 when it was just a weird ghost town, but came here for the opening and just felt this incredible energy for this area and this bar, and I'd never been in a bar like it before, and just loved it. And then I always wanted to be around this area and move around this area, but it was 1995 before I moved here, and then I moved to Kubelikova 35 and lived at Kubelikova 35 for about 6 years.
Which is what, like 2 minutes walk from here?
Yeah, 2 minutes crawl, basically. So, yeah, I spent a lot of time here back in the mid to late 90s, and it was great. And sometimes my friends and I would come here, maybe have a few too many drinks and forget to pay, but the bartenders would just give me the tab when I came back in and be like, okay, here you go, you forgot this.
How would you say Akropolis has changed over the years, Dean, or has it changed?
The only thing that I could really point out is it seems like the music's a little bit like at a lower volume. I remembered it being pretty rock and roll. And then, it's got one of those feels, like every 3 or 4 years the personnel changes, and then the vibe changes a little bit, kind of like Saturday Night Live or something, and then now it's way back in its groove again. It's really great. I think the new ownership and management has really done a lot to make it a kind of community, It's like that Cheers feel. You come in, they say everybody knows you, they remember you, they say hi when you're walking by, they wave at you, and that's how it was way back in the day. And so I guess it changed, but now it's back to kind of being pretty awesome.
Just 1 block away from Akropolis on Kubelikova is U Kurelů. It used to be a typical Žižkov smoky dive, and was one of the first spots in Prague to have topless waitresses. But since taking over U Kurelů last year, Laurie and Dean have carried out a successful overhaul of the large space, opting for a style that strikes a perfect balance between past and present. The pair already had the hopping Tavern burger bar a few blocks away, so why refashion an old-school pub?
I lived 2 doors down for a long time, from like 1995 until 2001 or 2. And I used to walk past this place and never came in that much because it was just so raunchy. I mean, I like Czech pubs that are raunchy, but this one was kind of over the top. But when Dean and I started looking for spaces to open, before we got the Tavern, we sort of drew a map of the neighborhood and went to every venue that we thought might be possible or might be appropriate. And this one, even though it was so decrepit and sort of just down and under, we just loved the energy and the space and the windows. And what we didn't know about it was the history. It's been a pub since 1907. And I think maybe that was part of the feeling that we had when we came here, because it's got so much history. We finally were able to acquire it, and it was really exciting for us because we felt like we'd been given sort of an honorable task to bring it back to something that it was before. It kind of went downhill. And we're trying to bring in live music and have some fun beers and some good pub food. Just because it's the best place in, a neighborhood to meet is your neighborhood pub. It's the perfect venue for it.
Dean, what does the name U Kurelů mean, and why did you keep it when you took over?
It's the family name. The building owner, like the great-great-great-grandson, still lives in the building. And so then his great-great-great-grandfather built the building, also opened this space as a pub, a restaurant, to support it, And apparently, as it goes, he worked here, like as the barkeep, and then put all the other family members through school. So what's it mean? It comes back to what Lori had said about it's a local place. It's like it's a community thing.
Have you had people coming in here who used to come when it was a smoky place with green tablecloths, and how have they reacted to your pretty amazing changes?
What we wanted to do when we opened it was not exclude the former clientele, but we did make it non-smoking, and we turned off the sports on the TVs, and we took away the automat and Herna machines. But we kept the beer price the same for Gambrinus because we wanted people to feel like they hadn't had a pub taken away from them. There were just some changes. However, there was a little animosity from some people who, demanded an ashtray, but not very much. And we've been excited because a lot of people have come back and had their, class reunions, and these are people who are like 60, 70 years old who said, oh, we used to come here and now it's so beautiful. And so I would say overwhelmingly it's been positive, the reaction. But, of course, the one guy screamed at us, "Don't any Shishkov!" and stormed out when we wouldn't give him an ashtray. But that's life. Life has changed.
One bugbear that I have is that very few venues in Prague, cafes or bars, seem to have any kind of policy to do with music. They let the barman play, Manu Chao 5 times in a row, or the soundtrack of Pulp Fiction or whatever. You guys seem to put some thought into the music, because both here and at the Tavern, you play good stuff.
I'm going to pass this on to Lori because she does all the playlists, and she works on it hours and hours and hours a week. It takes an incredible amount of time, and it's so important. It's one of those things that that is so important that you can't leave up to personnel because they have their own personal decisions, but what's best for the business. So I'll let you talk more.
Well, Ian, like you, I've lived in Prague for a long time, and I have the same issues with a lot of venues that are nice, but the music and it kind of ruins the atmosphere. And I love music, and I love being in pubs that have good music, so I just try to put out what I would like to hear in a pub, and I appreciate that you enjoy what we have, because I try to make it a mix of old and very new and all sorts of stuff in between.
Also, it's hard to leave a place where the music's really good.
Exactly. Yes, it's true.
Around us here at U Kurelů, you have lots of old album covers and posters and stuff. What is the significance of the art on the walls here?
The art on the walls, we picked Petr Novak over there because we saw in an old photo that one of his posters was hanging up here in the 70s, and we were able to, through our manager Yenda, contact Bohdan Holomíček, who is an amazing, famous Czech photographer who photographed Havel and did all sorts of fantastic documentation of this area, but especially U Kurelů, because he hung out here in the 70s and 80s. And he's been so generous to give us all sorts of beautiful photos that he took of his time here. And it's for us very inspiring because we want to revive that same spirit that he and his friends experienced here. It was called Uposhti at the time because under communism it couldn't be called U Kurelů because it was a private name.
That would signify ownership.
Exactly. So the photos that we have hanging up are Bohdan's photos, and it makes it even more special for us to continue this tradition that he experienced. And he's come in many times and loves the new space, and so we're really especially excited to be able to have his photos hanging and have him come in and be excited about what we're doing.